So Jesus sends out 70 disciples to represent him. The All Black squad has only 31 players, but I'm sure by the time you add all those support staff and coach, you might get to that good biblical number of 70. Close to the score they got this morning, actually. We send our rugby players out to take on the world, and we watch their successes and sometimes their failures, but mostly their successes. And there's so much commentary, isn't there, on their training, their abilities, the opposing teams. Are the French falling apart? Clearly they were. Now, we would never send our All Blacks out unprepared and without training. And we certainly wouldn't send them out without bags of gear, all those uniforms they have, and their flash suits and their boots, all with the, appropriate sponsor logo on them just for the cameras to catch. We would never send them out with all that stuff that they need. Jesus, on the other hand, sends his 70 disciples out with nothing at all, with nothing but themselves. And why 70? Well, Moses commissioned 70 elders way back in the days of the Exodus from Egypt, and 70 was considered a number that kind of meant it was all the peoples, because way back in Genesis chapter 10, the descendants of Noah that are listed there were numbered 70, and so that meant enough to cover the whole world. So whenever we see the number 70, it means enough to kind of cope with everybody and everything. So sending out 70 was enough to cover the whole earth. Let's hope those All Blacks can keep on managing with 15 of their 31. Of the four gospel writers, Luke is the one with the widest vision of how the Jesus movement is going to reach to the ends of the earth. So Luke is the only writer to send out 70 disciples instead of just the 12. And Luke, or the writer that we call Luke, is also the author of the book of Acts. And of course, the book of Acts recounts the story of the early church and its expansion. So that too is about reaching out to the known world. And Luke places an emphasis on connecting with foreigners, with Gentiles, with the unclean. Luke tells more stories about women, and he has a focus on the poor and the outcast as well. Without Luke's gospel, we wouldn't have the Good Samaritan, the prodigal son, and the walk on the road to Emmaus. We also wouldn't have the angel Gabriel visiting Mary, the shepherds in the birth story, and we wouldn't have the Magnificat, and we wouldn't have the Song of Simeon. All of those things are key parts of our faith story and parts of our worship, and they're all in Luke and in Luke only. And the setting for today's passage is Samaria, fitting in with Luke's reaching out to those who weren't part of the people of Israel. Remember, people in Samaria, Samaritans, were despised by their Jewish neighbours, a bit like the way Palestinians and Israelis are behaving at the moment. And so Luke has Jesus send the 70 on their first mission to Samaria, where they will certainly not be welcome. But they're not allowed to take bags of camping gear in case no one welcomes them into their home. They're to have no purse, so no money, no bag, and no extra pair of sandals. If they are welcomed, they're able to stay, and if they're not welcomed, then they just move on. And they have to be clear that they are coming in peace. Their first words on entering a house are to be, "Peace be with you," in order to be clear that they're not coming with the usual Jewish hostility towards Samaritans. It's a bit like when you're welcomed onto a marae, you have to prove that you're coming in peace. So the 70 are just to bring themselves, their knowledge of Jesus, their desire for a better world, their faith, and the clothes they stand up in. Wouldn't really work for our rugby team. Although, once that rugby team gets on the field, it's just them and what they have. All the preparation and the training and the working hard up till then is all in the past then. They have to be in the moment. It's just them and the clothes they stand up in. The latest Time magazine has a series of articles about the ongoing refugee crisis in Europe. But the most powerful thing is often with time is a photo essay, and it's called The Things Migrants Carry. And it's just a couple of pages of photos, things that they carry. There's a photo of a ring with a cross on it, a photo of a pendant with some verses of the Quran in it, a phone charger, some medical supplies, a very tiny handbag, a watch, and then a person just with the clothes they are wearing. Visual images of the exodus of refugees, walking with hope, walking in desperation, and carrying nothing. I wonder how that compares to what we carry with us each day in our handbags or briefcases or pockets. For at least a year after the Christchurch earthquake, which I had the misfortune to be in, I carried my phone charger and a water bottle in my handbag every day. I would panic if they weren't with me. Those were the two things that we needed that day that I didn't have in my handbag. When I travel, I'm one of those people who always packs way more than you need, just in case there might be an extra something that we end up doing. Want to have the right clothes. So what do we carry with us each day? What do we carry with us when we are sent out of the doors from our church service on a Sunday? We're sent out each week from church by the deacon who serves both church and community, the one who connects us from church to the world. And we're sent out to live and breathe and serve and work, to laugh and cry, to care for others. And so what do we carry with us as we go from here? What are our tools? We have our hands and we have our hearts. We have our knowledge and love of God and the way of Jesus. But I've been wondering lately, how well equipped do we feel for our lives as followers of the Jesus way? What kind of training might we need? How many laps of the field do we need to run? Our worship each week is designed to refresh us in the faith, to renew our hearts and minds, to remind us of our daily patterns of prayer, of confession and forgiveness, of commitment and service, of our need to be fed by the Word of God and by the bread of life. The pattern of worship gives us the pattern for our daily life. But is that enough? It may well be. Makes me think of my father, who I used to describe as an economic Christian. He went to church pretty much every Sunday, but never to Bible classes or study groups or prayer groups or anything extra. He got what he needed on a Sunday morning. My mother, on the other hand, attends all the groups. For some of us, Sunday is enough. Others of us need more. And I've been wondering what we might need to offer here at St Matthew's to equip us a little bit better, to send us on our way into our daily lives. In recent weeks, we've had a few sessions for new parishioners, and that's been a really fruitful time of discussion and learning. And I think next year we'll offer that little series again, but there are some other things we might offer as well. And so today, as you came in, you've been given a small survey. If you can complete it before you leave today, that'd be great, but I'm also going to send it out on the email this week if you prefer to do it that way. I've listed a few possibilities of things that we might do, but there will be lots more ideas than the things that I've come up with, so feel free to put those down as well. And of course, we won't do everything, but I feel that we could do one or two more things in terms of after church or before church programs, or maybe something during the week. Something that might equip us more for our daily life. And that's the important thing, that it's something that equips you for your daily life. It's not just more internal church. It's got to be about what you need for your daily life as you go about your work and as you go about your service in the community. Jesus sent the 70 out with no bags because they had what they needed within themselves. They had a love for Jesus and for each other, and they had sat at his feet, and they had listened and they had learned. They had broken bread together and they had prayed together. All of this they carried with them, like the disciples on the Emmaus Road, who said, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" What do we need each week to make our hearts burn? What do we need as we are sent out to love and to serve? Think about it, and we'll see what we can do together.